I'd like to welcome everybody here to another English-speaking edition of our IOM talk. My name is Björn Negemann from Congress Media. I'm the moderator in our team, and I'm lucky to speak with interesting guests here each week about the digital transformation of work. This is our key topic that we're discussing with our event, the IOM Summit, which is being organized each year in September. Next week, we have another week of IOM Summit, again, 3 days coming up with interesting talks and a lot of discussions. And accompanying to this, we have in the digital world nowadays, we have our weekly IOM talks with short chats and conversations with experts. And today we're talking about adoption and change and how this is key for the success of the digital transformation of work, and how it's going to, or how it should be done rightly. This is the question we are discussing today, and I'm happy to welcome here on my little stage for this afternoon, for this talk, Martin Risgaard Rasmussen from Denmark. Hi, Martin.
Hi, Björn. Thank you for the welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for your time that you're spending for us this afternoon. You are a senior adoption and change management consultant with Microsoft in Denmark, also PROSCI, we see it in the background, a PROSCI certified advanced instructor. So you're doing a lot of, you have a lot of expertise in how to proceed a good project management in the fields of changing contexts and developing emerging contexts, I think.
Absolutely.
We know each other already a long time. Before Microsoft, you spent also times on the other side of the channels, or I mean on the working channel, so with companies, help as an internal expert developing new projects for intranets and digital workplaces, but that was in the past. So how's life at the moment in Denmark?
Well, and in Denmark, we are quite fortunate because finally things are starting to open up again.
You had your Freedom Day already.
We've had our Freedom Day, restrictions were lifted. So I think the only place where you still have to wear masks and things is if you go to the airport and a few other places. So we are in the situation that we are free also to visit offices and things.
And are you visiting your office, or are you hesitating in staying still? Has the notion of the office changed for you?
I think for me personally, I have been working remotely for the entire career I've had with Microsoft. So that's for the last 7 years or so. So for me, it hasn't changed all that much. But you can see that people, they have been missing something, and then so have I, to be honest, because this is the social connection that you have at work, and I can see that when I go to the office that people are coming back, but you can always feel like you still need to adjust, because just like we had to adjust to working from home, we now have to adjust coming back to the office, because there are some things that have fundamentally changed. For instance, something as simple as trivial as a handshake. Do you shake other people's hands now when you come to the office? Do you still do the elbow thing, or what do you do? And it sort of seems like you're not shaking people. Shaking somebody's hand seems wrong. So lots of small things that still needs to be adjusted. Or at least that's what I see.
How about the evaluation of the office times? So what do you spend office times for? In other discussions I had in the context of our IOM Summit, I think it was Tim Mixer who said that we really have to rethink how we spend or how we schedule times in the office, because it should be at a higher value now, because everything else, process work, we can do remotely, but in the office we can meet each other, and then we should spend time in deeply meetings and not just coordination meetings.
Yeah. Absolutely, and this is something I don't think we have seen that quite yet, what the results will be, but I completely agree that one of the fundamental shifts, or one of the fundamental changes of the way they work, or the way we work, is to find out what can we do remotely and what requires face-to-face. Previously, the default reaction was that we need to meet, and we need to meet physically, and to basically get anything done. But I think that what we have learned over the last 18 months is that we can actually do a lot from remote, even for organizations who are very, let's say, very traditional in a way. So have we seen, as I said, I don't think we have seen that change just yet, but what I have observed, because we are some of the customers I'm working with, or companies I'm working with, they are also starting to open up very, very slowly. And articulate, we have this conversation, and articulating when do we need to meet, why do we need to meet, it's becoming different, because they also acknowledge that, well, yes, we want to be there, we want to visit them, we want to be on site as a consultant, of course, because it gives you a different way of thinking, and you get a better understanding of how this company works and how do they work. But do we have to be there all the time? I don't think so, because in the past I had lots of, personally, I was traveling quite a bit more than 100 days per year. And sometimes it wasn't even a question of whether you do it or not, it was just expected. But now I think that there's a new opening to push back on that part, and saying that, no, sorry, we don't need to meet because of this, or for this particular workshop maybe. We can do this remotely, and it could even be more efficient, because we have this is something we have learned. On the other hand, meeting in person, sometimes, of course, when you start new projects, you know how team formation happens. We have this forming, storming, norming phases. Meeting face to face and deepening the relationship is going to be very, very important still, if you ask me. So and also in some, it's hard to say exactly when, but sometimes in projects you'll also experience that you get stuck, or that you move in circles. I've seen that happen a couple of times now, because we are that way you sort of start to discuss the same things over and over again, and you sort of get the feeling that we are not really progressing. And for that, of course, you can do many things to make sure that we continuously progress. But one of the reasons why this happens in my book is that we haven't built this relationship. So we are not entirely sure what we can say and what we can't say. So in those cases, you will also have to meet. So all in all, it's a new cadence that we have to come up with. We have to find out how do we mix the virtual work that we have been so used to with the physical work, which we have to get used to again.
The virtual world of remote working or remote distributed working that we are used to, is it already very much used to? Is it true? What is your view on the state of remote working after 1 year of forced to work remotely?
Yeah.
Have we yet achieved a real culture of remote working?
I think that it depends very much on the organization that you are part of. So have we reached a maturity? We have definitely reached a different kind of maturity. And I think most people who have been, well, we've all been forced to work from home to some extent. But most people, they have realized what you can do, and they have had their perceptions challenged on how much you can get done. Have we fully adjusted to remote working? No, we haven't. Not at all, and nor should we, if you ask me. So I'm not the person who would advocate that we should be sitting at each our little room, working from well, basically wherever we want to. We still need to get together. But as you mentioned initially, also to your own point, Bjørn, that we need to meet with a purpose, and we may not have to meet just for meeting's sake. And that I think that's the difference, and that has been an eye opener for people, and also making it more okay to work from home. It's also something that has changed people's minds.
But just coming back also a little bit to our topic that we want to discuss on how to do the adoption and change, maybe as the entry question for this. So if we just look at the virtual and remote part of working, so at what level of grades would you evaluate the overall state that has been achieved? I mean, you said.
Yeah, I don't know if it's not like on a scale from 1 to 10 type question. I think it's more that you have, if we look at it from a change management perspective, we have a model called ADKAR, which I'm sure many are familiar with, and it's if we sort of address that or put the journey that we have been on in the context of ADKAR. I think that we have for a long time we've had a good awareness of what is possible and that we can work from home. We have and that awareness has actually been there. We have also had the knowledge because we do know how to work with Teams, Zoom, or whatever you use. Before that, Skype. So this is also this is not new. Have we had the ability? Yeah, we actually have. We've had that as well. Because again, it's not hard. It's something we have been used to. Have we learned more? Have we raised the game in the knowledge and ability part? Absolutely. What has changed is the desire, because prior to COVID, we have been struggling a little bit with why should we work from home? What's in it for me? What's instead of coming to the office because there's nice coffee, lots of nice people. So the desire for moving to a purely remote working environment, it was not really there. That was forced upon us. So you sort of got this forced desire, which is an interesting concept in its own right. So the desire, will that remain? I'm pretty sure it will, because you can see that where we have, and I think this is an area where we have moved the most, is actually to have the desire to work from home. Some people
if you went over the tipping point of people that really changed their mindset in this regard?
I think so. That I have seen it happen. I've seen people make these adjustments, and also when we talk about coming back to the office, then it's actually perceived that you don't have to be in the office to do work. So
okay. That's because you mentioned before that people are rethinking whether they should meet in person or whether it might be also more efficient doing it remotely. I mean, this implies already that we understand, or that we rationalize these two situations and not let us lead by the desire to go to the office because it's always nice to go to the office. Can you hear me?
I just lost audio for a second there. Sorry.
Okay. So, I mean, so therefore, you said we have already advanced in this. So, what are the key challenges now for the project teams in regards to the further adoption and the further change of the teams and the people within the companies?
I think it's the main challenge will be how to adopt the hybrid way of working, because there's something that hasn't fundamentally changed. In the past, you did have these face-to-face meetings with 1 or 2 remote participants. That could be a very odd experience at times. Because you sort of felt that you were you weren't part of what was going on in the room, and it was hard to get these people properly engaged. I'm not sure we have really seen that hasn't gone away. That when we get back in the office, we will still have to adjust to that. On the other hand, but the good thing is that people who are working remotely, they will have it's easier for them to address the issue, and everybody in a room who will be there well, they will now have a different understanding of what it means to work from home. So there is I would say that from my perspective, what we're looking at is a new way of these hybrid scenarios, because it will be more normal, it will be more accepted that people will join meetings and calls from, well, basically from anywhere. Whereas I know that in many organizations in the past, it was more like, no, you have to be at the office to do work. And when you're working from home, it's because you have something personal to do. So you are working from home, which was a bit of an interesting sentiment that I've heard quite a few times.
But from all that you have said, it seems like there are no challenges and no problems anymore. I mean, certainly in the hybrid world, we have to rearrange a little bit our desire, because we're not totally forced anymore to one situation. We can also choose. But I mean, aren't there any more? Is it already a bright, shiny world in the context of new forms of collaboration?
I think we are in sort of the same situation as we were before, where we're still struggling, and now we will struggle even more, because we have to adjust to this reality where it's perfectly okay for people to say, no, I'm not coming to the office. I'll be attending via Teams, for instance. So if we think about what I've just heard, that one of the features that is being developed at the moment for Teams is an opportunity to respond whether or not you will attend a meeting in real life, or if you will attend a meeting remotely. And I think this speaks volumes to this shift, that before it was sort of on-site, face-to-face is preferable, and then attending remotely is because you couldn't do anything else. Now it's much more equal, and it still requires a different way of thinking about meetings, about being in the office, about working together. So I don't want to make it sound like we have everything solved, because we haven't. We just haven't seen. We shifted 18 months ago. We shifted to a new way of work that was remote. Now, 18 months later, we are shifting to a new way of work, and that's another new way of work. And this will be this hybrid scenario, which we haven't really seen it play out fully yet, because we're just on the cusp of this happening.
But in regards of also of your work in supporting teams and organizations to find their way in this, where do you see the challenge of this rearrangement? It's the leader? Is it the leadership? Is it the mindset of the leader? Is it the team behavior? Is it the team rules that are not yet
you have to
consistent for this?
Yeah, you definitely have to address to think about your team's behaviors, and also what you want to achieve. Again, this is fundamentally not that different from pre-COVID, when we talked about. I was involved in many projects where we discussed how can you run more effective meetings, or how can you collaborate better, or those kind of things. You still have to think about the same things. So that part is not really different.
But from the other side of the coin. No.
Yeah, exactly. So then now you just have to the question is more or less the same. Like, why do we have this meeting? What do we need to get out of it? And I'm not saying that it's not that you will have these mandatory meetings where everybody gets together on a certain topic, because there's still a huge value in that. But you may have to let's say raise the bar a little bit for those meetings. So more or lower the bar, depending on how you look at it. And this is where, what can you do in the hybrid environment when everybody is used to working like we do right now? Well, we can do a lot with, if you have a camera, you have a microphone, provided that it works. And then again, it's
this implies also a little bit that we have to rethink what we're doing at the meetings, don't we?
Yeah, I think so
what's the meeting for, and are there other ways of collaboration without doing the meeting, and also achieve this the goal at the end of the team?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I would hope that we have learned when it comes to meetings and collaboration out of this COVID, is that we don't have to have these very long, endless meetings. You can get a lot done in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes You don't, instead of having to gather, I don't know, 20 people for 4 hours, just because everybody needs to get their voices heard. I know this was already a bit of an issue in the past, but it was also like the elephant in the room for many. So what if we could take some of the practices that we have gotten used to from the remote world and take that into the physical world a little bit more? Will it happen? Let's see.
But in the remote work, we also had some way too many virtual long meetings in this regards. Isn't it that we have to also rethink about, because we have been discussing also this in other conversations, rethink about synchronous and asynchronous work and the value of it, that we have
and that's
sure that more information has been asynchronously shared and that everybody is on the same level of information and knowledge within the team without any meeting.
And I think this has been in the past has been a purpose for some meetings, although not a, let's say, not a very clearly articulated purpose of a meeting. That if you have a 2-hour meeting for many people, sometimes it actually frees up time in a very busy schedule, and it allows you to work together on something, so it becomes more of a co-working session. So maybe that could also be a principle that you should embrace a little bit more and be more conscious of what do you put in your calendar. You just don't book a calendar full of meetings. It's not productivity. So what did you do? Well, I was in 8 meetings today, or I have back-to-back meetings all the time. Is that like false productivity? You were busy just to be busy, right? So, but what are you busy with? That's the bigger question. So, booking things like focus time and things like that, it's not new. Again, this is some of the same conversations we've had for the last, I remember you and I, we've had them before as well, many years ago, even when we started that. So some of the fundamentals are not really shifting. So, but I think that one of the main dimensions that we need to think about is the social part. So the social fabric. We are still a team, yes. Can you build relationships online? Of course you can. But the deep relationships, they are, in my opinion, they are still built face to face. So this is when we see the whole person, because I don't know what you do when you turn off your camera. You don't have that kind of visibility. The chat around the water cooler, the chat around the coffee machine, things like that. These are the things that is still missing a little bit. For some, it's perfectly fine. For others, like me, it's the part I've been missing. So it's sort of the glue that sticks it together, right?
Yeah. But what I meant also is that we take out of the meetings stuff that we could coordinate asynchronously.
Absolutely.
Share information and so on. I mean, have we learned this during the forced remote time? I don't think so yet, because there was just in a lot of companies that we have been discussing, there was a lot of just moving the real life meetings towards the virtual space, and now they're going back, but they haven't yet adapted to asynchronously sharing information and sharing knowledge at that point.
No.
And then getting rid of some time of the meetings.
But it's an interesting conundrum, because what we are talking about, I completely agree that you can take many things out of. There are many things you can take out of meetings if we look at a meeting, but we are not very good at setting time aside to prepare for meetings or to follow up on meetings. So it's almost like it has to happen in the context of the meeting, and we book ourselves with back-to-back meetings, and that's what adds up to all the stress. At the end of the day, this is also very much around company culture. So like, what does the leadership do? What do they say? What is expected? So Because what I have seen is that we almost share more information in the remote world than we have done before. It has become easier for us to quickly share a document or share a link to something, but it becomes quite unstructured. So are you then following up? Maybe not. Should you take time? Should you set time aside to follow up on these things? Of course you should. And I think it's also, it could be,
information gets lost.
It gets lost, yeah, because it gets too fragmented.
Yeah, okay. So therefore we need also, again, a little bit more the meeting to be more structured.
I think reinstating some structure will also be is something that people will see and that they will feel a need for. But I think what I would like to see is also to see leadership, company leadership, look at how do we actually spend time together, and how in just not just meetings, but in total, how do we interact? What is it that we do? And if you think about the cultural part, so you still have lots of organizations where you have this command and control way of thinking, where you have the managers, they are there to manage and they are there to manage the team and make sure that they deliver on whatever they have been set up to do. I would like to think that over the last 18 months, many of these managers have realized that the teams, they are actually quite good or quite capable and quite good at working on their own. So just getting them back in the office, getting them back somewhere just to stay in control, if we can put it like that, I think I would like to see more companies, more organizations articulate that we trust people more, and we trust that you do good work, because otherwise we wouldn't have hired you. And it sort of ties back to this: how do we share knowledge? How do we work together? It's not, it's a different mindset. And I will, as I said, I would hope that that is something that others have been taking away from these 18 months. That's trust people. It goes a long way.
So if we look at the focus or the key points that should be addressed within an adoption and change management program, is it, you would say, it's the redefinition or the redefining of the meeting and its purpose and its principles and so on. That's a key aspect that we have to work on at the moment.
It is if we're looking at meetings specifically, it will be one of the aspects. But what we do know around change management from a successful change is that the number one precursor for success of any change project, it is about making sure that we have active visible sponsorship. So it doesn't have to be a CEO who mandates something. But if we are talking about a culture change, you need to anchor it higher up in the organization.
But haven't we achieved this already during the remote times?
I'm not sure we have,
Okay.
because but then there's also an element of thinking about how do we work together in teams, not teams as the product, but how do the teams function once we come back. So sponsorship could also be on a more, let's say, on a smaller level, on a divisional level. Like, we need to do things differently. We need to maybe come together in some sessions and discuss what would we like to keep from the 18 months that we have just been through, or 2 years, how long time it will be, and what were we missing.
It's a deep understanding of the leaders about the remote work and its values.
Exactly. So really making sure that we make this a discussion and make this a talking point. Just like if I am to sort of think about this from when COVID first struck, I was working with a company in Finland, and I was there on the very day that they closed the both in Denmark and Finland, so I had to travel back head over heels. But what was interesting there, they had a very traditional setup where you met and you came to work every day, and there's nothing wrong with that, not at all. But overnight, they had to adjust to a new way of thinking about things. And from Microsoft, we were a big Microsoft team, and we had to educate them a little bit, in a positive sense, of course, because we were used to this. They weren't used to it so much. So things like making sure that we articulated that dogs, kids, deliveries, that would happen in the background in the middle of meetings, it was okay. It was not, now it was part of life, because this is where we were. In the past, it would have been deeply unprofessional, or it might have been perceived as very deeply unprofessional if all of a sudden there was a cat walking around the table in front of you. But now you're at home, and it's perfectly fine, because Martin it doesn't take anything away from his contribution that there is a cat in front of him. It just happens to be there. So this, let's say this was a bit of a mindset shift for them, and they had to articulate a few things around what is okay and what is not okay. Also, when you are working remotely, both for managers but also for employees. And I think we should do the same when we come back in the office. As I said, what would we like to keep? What have we learned? And have some open conversations around that with the leadership, in our teams, because only if a big mistake that I see, a potential big mistake when we come back in the office that I will see, is that we try to go back to working like we did before.
So we have to find regulation on that. It's okay coming back in leisure trousers and a shirt.
Yeah, exactly.
We did this in the home office.
That's absolutely.
So besides this deep understanding of also the context of the remote work and the hybrid and the new hybrid world, what else are there? What other challenges are there out there for the adoption and change process at the moment?
I think if we look at that part, then one of the big changes, I think change is changing at the moment. And one area where the change management discipline is still adjusting is to the world where we do things in agile development, and we do things in rapid cycles, because it puts some pressure on change management. Traditionally, change management has been very much end-to-end focused, like waterfall-ish. I talked about active and visible sponsorship, still very, very important, but we are entering a world where things are not as hierarchical and sequential as it used to be. So getting used to working with change management in a world where things change all the time is actually a big change. I see that with my colleagues, because we have also been working on these big projects where you have a start date, you have an end date, you have the milestones in between. This is all great. What happens if we translate that to an agile project? So what we see is that change management doesn't go away. Quite the contrary, there's actually more change management needed, but in a different way, because you have all these small iterations. So you have to continuously go through the ADKAR journey, for instance. But at the same time, you also need to think about, we are moving from here to here. It's like, what is the MVP or whatever it is? At some point in time, you still release a product. So, and if you have, I don't know, 8 development sprints, if you have 2-3 different MVPs already scheduled, it's important to keep track of what's the direction, what's the North Star that we are aiming towards. So the discipline of change management, the change is changing. I think that's I think somebody from ProSci coined that also. It's sort of, this has nothing to do with COVID, but I think this is something that people, they need to be mindful of. It's, even though that we do things more agile, well, we involve people all the time. We have lots of touch points. We have UATs. We have retrospectives. We have lots of things that we continuously do.
I think it has still something to do with COVID, because COVID has brought out the point that before COVID, we already talked about this changing from changing the state towards a state of change. That was always yes, that will be in the future. That's what we have to be prepared for. But with COVID, we ran right into this, and right now everything is changing. Also after COVID, all the business value change has been somehow has to be rearranged, and there's a lot of transformation going on. And certainly this has advanced, I mean, the development in this field.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
There's no question that if we look at the digital workplace, the fact that COVID all of a sudden struck, it meant that we, as I mentioned with this ZCAR comparison, the desire, or actually people understanding all of a sudden what does it mean to have a working digital workplace. I don't think that we could, in the digital workplace community, we could have designed a journey like that, because we just all of a sudden we just got the adoption. It was just there. So all the tools that we need are just there. And so to your point, Bjørn, I think, yeah, you're right that there's an element of that, because we have over the last couple of years, well, we have continuously done all these small developments. We have continuously learned what can we do and what can't we do. And this to a certain extent, this has been experimental, right? So something where we have been trying things out. Some things worked, something didn't. What can we learn from that? And so in that sense, this is also sort of the incremental change. But I think what we didn't have in that, if I compare that to like agile development, we didn't have this North Star. It was more about figuring out how do we work now in this new context. We need to remain as productive as we were before, as connected as we were before, and so on and so forth. So this, yeah, that's why I would say that it sets itself apart. So the big question is now, where do we see this develop? So for the digital workplace community, or modern, whatever we call it, Microsoft, we call it modern work, what does that mean? And then leads me back to what I said before. You need to have a conversation around how do we work together in this new world of work. So is there anything we need to adjust, anything we can learn, anything we need to do more of, anything we need to accept? What does the future really look like? Because before it was like the aspiration was that we would be working remotely, we could work from anywhere, and we had all the tools at our disposal on our PC. All of a sudden, now I'm grossly generalizing, we can do, check, we got that. We have that.
Are the leaders open enough to this further rethinking of the situation?
I think many are. What I have seen and what I have heard, even from some of these very traditional manufacturing companies, those are typically the ones who are very traditional, right? I have been surprised of how quickly they embraced these new ways of working. And I'm also getting the sense that they would like to continue doing this, because at the end of the day, nobody loves those endless meetings, and nobody loves business travel just for business travel's sake. So they are readily embracing these ways of working, because let's not forget that if we look at the top management in various organizations, they have also been feeling this strain. We just haven't heard about it. So it's something that has been happening on different levels. So have we heard? Well, some may have heard of it, but it's been sort of hidden away a little bit. So do we have the sponsorship? I think so. And there's a good opportunity also for people working with the digital workplace to maybe reassess, rearticulate, reevaluate how is it that we're working together. So window of opportunity, you can almost say.
So you mentioned now, well, so we worked out now two key aspects that we have to address. So the deep understanding of the new situation, and then also the new notion and new understanding of the change management process. Are there any more aspects we have to think about, or are these two the key aspects that we have to work on?
I would say that those would definitely be the main aspects I would consider. So change is well, I know this is something that it sounds a bit corny, but change is a constant. We know that. I think that the only additional thing I would say is that we really need to be careful that we are not rushing too fast in recreating what we had before without thinking about it. Because it will be relatively easy to fall back into our old routines, but it would not. I don't think that it would benefit many of us, actually. So many people would like to get back to the stable life of having more predictability. So think about how can we build that into the process, because let's face it, uncertainty is something that we don't like as humans. So how can we, like we just discussed, how can we address these things? How can we make sure that we manage change in a better way? And how can we see if we can create a bit of predictability? Because let's just face it, the last months have been quite unpredictable.
So if you look at the future of that, of those projects that you are supporting with your work, and think of colors, would you say it's green, orange, or red?
In the sense that, well, we are looking at, I'm thinking green mostly.
Okay. So it's very positively.
It is quite positive. It's of course, I'm not saying that there are not challenges, but I'm mainly working right now. I'm mainly working with digital transformation projects. So which talks about moving things to the cloud, and also working with implementation of like Teams and things like that. It's not really a cloud move, but I also have a few of those projects. The Teams migration.
Those projects are not stagnating as
no, they have been moving. They have been moving along quite nicely. Yeah, they have been moving along quite nicely. What will be interesting is to see the digital workplace projects. What will happen now? But then you lose, in want of a better expression, you lose a bit of your burning platform, or your platform is not burning so hot anymore. So what will happen there? I still think that organizations, they have realized that they need to make a move. But it could be that we have a situation where the pace will be slowing down a bit. So it's something to be mindful of as well. But the digital transformation, it will definitely continue, and we have just seen the start of that.
No, I can fully agree on this, because that's also what we have seen in our discussions, that a lot of companies comparing the situations of the same projects before COVID and now after COVID. Certainly during the key lockdown times, people have been forced, they have been also stressed because of the enforcement of this situation, certainly. Mm-hmm. But now they're really looking very positively in the future, looking back on what they have already achieved in regards of the change and the adoption. Mm-hmm. What movement and a movement has been created during these times that can now be used to get on the next level.
Yeah,
I mean that's quite nice, I think, and
exactly.
That's quite positive for this whole transformation process.
Absolutely. If you are a digital manager, a digital workplace manager, or whatever your organization may call it, right? But if you were that 2 years ago and compare that to where you are today, you have had an adoption that you could only dream of. But so the big question to digital workplace managers would be, all right, you have the adoption now. What are you going to do about it? What have you done about it? What are you going to do about it going forward? So what can you...
So now I have to bring this together with the North Star, as you said before.
Exactly. So like where is it we want to be? And the North Star that we had before for our digital workplace or for the employee experience, is that still the same North Star? Mm-hmm. Or do we need to see if we can? Well, there's only the one North Star, but do we need to adjust our direction?
North Star in the business objective sense, what we've been talking about, certainly, yeah. Yeah, so, that's very interesting. And Martin, thank you very much for your time. There was an interesting talk, and I think there was a lot of value in it, and also I learned a lot of what are the key challenges for the next times. And thank you again, and thank you also for those who have followed us today, or who are following us or watching this video afterwards on YouTube and anywhere else. Thank you for being there. Yes, we are moving forward into our last week until the IOM Summit coming up next week. We have 3 days of interesting talks and discussions, mainly in German, because it's a German conference, but we have also some international guests again. like Jane McConnell, like Rachel Happy, as well as Diane Hinchcliffe coming up next week. So just also, if you are international guests, have a look at our program at iom-summit.de. You find our program there. It's a German website. Again, it's quite difficult for internationals, but still, you might find your way. Martin, thanks again, and
thanks for the invitation.
hopefully
Thanks for having
see
me,
you soon.
Absolutely.
Hopefully see you soon somewhere again at any conference and any gathering. So
I hope so too. Thank you.
We're out at this point. Bye bye.